Hi, Jude.
Hello, Alessio.
So today it's the second episode, part of the self.
Yes,
But before that, shall we just remind our audience who we are?
we should do that. Yeah. Shall I
Shall
start this time?
why not? Yes.
Yeah. So I'm Jude. I'm a level 3 certified IFS psychotherapist and an approved clinical consultant. And I run some training and have a real passion around neurodiversity. I'm an ADHD myself, and I work with neurodivergent therapists and clients. And also I use she, they pronouns. And a lot of my work is with queer clients and colleagues as well.
Thank you, Jude. Beautiful. And we'll put and remind people where they can find us. We'll put our
We put
websites,
links in the show notes.
links
Yeah.
in the show in under the description. So what about me? So I am Alessio. I use pronouns he, they. I identify as gender fluid, at times non-binary, gay, and neurodivergent. So what do I want to say about myself? So I am an assistant trainer. So I'm on the career path to become a lead trainer for IFS. And so I dedicate myself to those, and also to the trainings, and also to working clinically. I'm an approved clinical consultant and a level 3 certified therapist for IFS. The majority, if not 100% of my clients are queer, and a good chunk of them are also neurodivergent. And I have, I think, like for people who might meet us for the first time, we joined forces in our conversation on neuroqueer in IFS at the conference in 2024. And this series of podcasts has come out of the amount of content that we just couldn't possibly put into one workshop, and also on the beautiful feedback that we have received. So we're really passionate about this, and we wanted to give a lot of space to the topic of self. And we did one episode already. And remind me, Jude, if I don't remember exactly, but we were talking about how we're never fully unblended. There is always like a good chunk of ourselves who has parts activated. We cannot always isolate.
Yeah, and I think it's very funny that you're asking me to remind you, because that would really require me remembering as well. But yes,
we have a cocktail of neurodiversities here really makes it difficult to remember.
Recall, always interesting. Yes, but we were talking about self, and we were also talking about, the pull to define what self energy is, or what self is, and how self might be understood in various different ways, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. And just as an introduction to self energy.
We did an introduction to self and self energy, and today I'd like to discuss a question that comes up quite often in trainings or in discussions. And of course, as usual in queering, we don't have an answer yet, but we want to stimulate whoever is listening or watching this to pay attention to their own system, to their own experience, to only take what's relevant from what we say, use what I call discernment, and to continue to queer and question what we're dealing with. The question today is self queer? And put it another way, when there is queerness, who holds that identity in the system.
Mm.
Is it the self? Is it the parts? Is it neither of them? So that's how I'm going to start the queering of this topic,
Mm.
Jude. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just feel like I want to say just something to a nod to queering, if that concept is new to people, maybe you're jumping in. I feel like we've defined it before, but who knows when.
Do it
So
again.
queering
Yeah.
is about it's not about needing to find an answer, but it's a questioning, and it's a subverting of things that we might just take for granted, lenses that we might see the world through that we don't even know are there. Like, for example, I mean, maybe if you're listening to this, you do know, but like heteronormativity or neuronormativity. So what we're doing is we're questioning and we're being curious, and that is the spirit of queering. It's kind of it's asking why, it's wondering about, and it's just yeah. So
Yes.
in queering, we are we queering queerness? Are
We
we
are.
queering?
Well, thank you for naming
We're
it.
queering the self, and we're queering, yeah,
We're querying the
yeah,
concept of self, yes. And
yeah,
we are, thank you for bringing up that definition, because when I say is the self queer, I refer to a version of queerness that's meaning non-heterosexual, that's
yeah,
talking about sexuality and potentially
mm,
gender as well. When we use
yeah,
queer, we kind of name someone who might hold various identities in terms of sexuality and gender, which already poses an interesting question. What do we mean by is myself queer? Is the self,
yeah,
are we talking about a sexual identity or a sexual preference? Are we talking about a
mm,
gender expression or a gender
yeah.
identity?
Right. What is queer?
What is queer?
Yeah.
So that takes an entire podcast in itself.
Yeah.
For the sake of this discussion today, I think this is something that I actually wanted to put in the neuro queering workshop, I think. But then at some point, I kind of said, oh, I'm not really fully sure, because I was really thinking about gender and sexuality. So let's put these two lenses on. So can when we have a gender identity or gender identities, what about the self? Does the
Mm,
self hold these identities equally when it comes to sexuality? Who is holding? Where is the sexuality coming from? Where is the gender identity coming from within the system? And it wasn't that easy to disentangle all of this.
mm.
I don't know if you remember what,
Yeah, I
but
remember the conversations that we were having around this, and in fairness to the neuroqueering conference presentation that we did, it was 90 minutes, so we had
yeah,
to
we had to chop things off.
chop a
Absolutely.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a question. I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm okay with not having an answer to it, but I don't have an answer to it. But it's just such an interesting question and worth a lot of our time to explore.
Yeah. Because I remember getting quite stuck on the when using the lens that we use for neurodivergence in terms of hardware.
Mm,
When we start to think of the system, so let's I think I'm happy to say that the system is queer, that my system is queer, my system is gay.
mm,
Yet for me to say that myself is gay, it just doesn't sound right to a
right.
certain
And
extent.
when you say myself, you mean myself.
Self, the capital
Yeah.
S, self.
Mm,
And when it comes to gender identities, I also feel that my self, capital S self, doesn't hold those identities. Yet, I perceive a difference, because with gender, I know that it's a social construct.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the conference, I say, well, we are so, in a way, it's a byproduct of how much weight as culture, society, we give to male, female. If we were born in a society that gives a lot of importance to the shape of a finger, then we would have names and identities around that. So therefore, I struggle to apply a social construct to the self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and that to me is quite clear in terms of gender. Yet I don't want to imply that people should have the same experience that I have. Maybe, Jude, you have a different experience to mine. But I know that some people feel that their self has a specific gender.
Yes, and I mean, in terms of me and my gender, obviously, I was born, raised, obviously, I say that, but I mean, I was born, raised, and socialized as female, and I have had a lot of experiences of being perceived in that way, and of course, your experience, born, raised, and socialized as male, so there's um differences there. Um, but so I'm trying to answer three questions at once. Just going to put the
Mm-hmm.
brakes on the Ferrari brain for a moment. Um, so for for me personally, I suppose I'm in a place of comfortable not knowing for myself, and at the same time, and I guess that's the same with me when we've had other conversations around what is self. I'm kind of yeah, I do seem to be comfortable in the not knowing and yeah, but for some of my clients, and I would say especially clients who had the experience of being born, raised, and socialized in a gender that is not their true gender,
Mm.
that for those clients, the gender of self might be more pronounced,
Yeah.
and that when there is a process of going to other parts in the system, maybe parts that are pre transition or pre knowing about this about their transness or whatever, the part of the update can be meeting the self who is exhibits is in the true gender of the system.
Mm.
Whether that's a presence of parts and self, I don't know, but I do see the healing power of it.
Right.
Um,
So
and I don't question it. I support it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So really, we're speaking to the fact that a system could have a misalignment between
Mm.
the physiology of the body that has a certain gender,
Yeah, or even the decision about that gender, because I mean, there's also
or the decision that's been made about the gender of the body. Yes.
yes, yeah. So, as that person was born, they were assigned a gender.
Sex. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a sex, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
sex assigned at birth. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, we're really wanting to really ultimately honor the experience of
Mm,
the person in front of us.
mm.
Like in this case between you and I, Jude, like in my case, there isn't a big need from within, where is self parts, I don't know, to have any issue with the physicality that I embody. Yet I don't identify as cisgender. That's
Mm,
quite clear to me. And if people identify me as men, it's usually quite uncomfortable. Like
yeah.
it's uncomfortable if they identify me as a woman. So I kind of prefer to be in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
But then who is this I who is saying I want to be in the middle? I don't know.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
But this is really about maybe kind of breathing with this question and making it more than yes or no, oh yeah, self has this or not, but it's really honoring the system and how the topic of gender and sexuality are emerging
Yeah.
in the therapy room.
Yeah. And I feel like I want to just give a nod to the work of San Chang and Nick Wilds, who are US-based IFSs who have done a lot of work around IFS and gender as well,
Yes.
and do a lot of work.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then I'm my mind is transitioning to sexuality, because
Mm.
when I ask myself the same question about, what about sexuality, sexual preferences, desires, where are they coming from within the system? And we've just recorded a beautiful episode with a guest, Ali, who speaks about the way he encompasses the P of passion, the C of connection in sexual encounters. So it's really about, so where is that coming from? What are we? Is it self-energy? I believe it is, when there is a sexual attraction, sexual fantasy, and there is a quite strong element that's got to do with the body, with the hardware. With gender, it could be very important that someone's body transitions as much as possible towards a desired gender. With sex, it's almost, with sexuality, with those ones who have sexual desires, we can't, unless I'm wrong, bypass the body, and the body seems to have its own preferences. I don't. When it comes to sexual arousal, I don't know if it is a self or the body who does these things, because
Well,
it's just part of the
yeah.
neurology somehow.
But
So,
isn't it all of that in a way? Sexual desire, sexual it's about the body, it's about the body, and it's about the mind, and it's about what the three you said three things, and I've said two of them, but
self, the
self, yeah, but
parts,
it's about all of that, I think.
Okay, so thank you for this, because I think I did some training in polyvagal theory lately, and I'm still trying to digest it, because they say that the nervous system operates almost at a pre-awareness level. They only talk about danger and safety. Wonder why they're not talking about sexual arousal, because to me, it's pretty much an aspect of the autonomic nervous system. We can't really decide when and how and to what extent we get aroused. Certainly, parts can hold burdens around it and interfere with the physiology, but there is a physiological element there that I believe almost is pre-parts, and the parts have to deal with it, almost accept to a certain extent that this is what the body is deciding. It's almost like the body deciding to want some food and some nutrition. That's where I'm at with this. That's why for me sexuality adds more complexity than gender to a certain extent. Dumping all this on you, Jude.
No.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that, because I think I wonder if it's a pre. I guess I feel like I'm thinking back to that thing that Ali said that I just really enjoyed last time, which I can't remember now, but
One about the
the
maze.
tortured maze of logic that we get into with sex
Hey,
and
can you say that
sexuality.
again slowly? Because I didn't catch it the first time.
When Ali was saying, sexuality is simple, but it's the
Oh,
tortured maze of logic we get into
oh,
around it.
tortured maze of logic. Okay.
And I'm just thinking that and I know that there are, and I'm going to be binary for a moment because that's where
Yes.
the studies exist. But I know there are the studies around male and female arousal systems in the body, and that there is a difference um, in terms of how kind of what's the word? What's this thing? Brain.
The brain.
How the brain can really put the brakes on or off.
Yes.
So I guess I'm seeing. I don't know. I wonder. I don't know. I don't know if I. But for me, I wouldn't necessarily see it as a pre
Mm,
thing, as you just said, but more like we've got these different vias, maybe that all kind of come together in the
mhm,
moment. And so there's the kind of the what the body does. There's the physiological arousal, and then there's kind of you know the mental processes. Um, yeah, that's as far as I've got. I feel like I've run out of steam
yeah.
mid-sentence there, so I'm wondering if
Well,
you'll rescue me.
because it's an extremely interesting area that I don't think
Mm,
we have much discussion about. So we are queering
yeah,
it somehow.
yeah,
So we are, which is pretty much the spirit of this podcast, is to understand the things that we don't understand, or to just put a maybe next to things that we think are set in stone,
mm-hmm.
because we are really exploring the intersection between the physicality, the hardware,
Yeah,
and the mind and the software, the parts, and
yeah,
where is the self placed in all of this? Because we need all of it to function to a certain extent, yet, and I think the physiology can influence the the parts, and vice versa, like we
mm,
say with neurodivergence, like parts might want and do things, and then it all needs to go through the nervous system. If it's
yeah,
a certain way, it will influence the potential and what's available.
hmm,
So I think we are again going to the same spot here with sexuality,
yeah,
the intersection between the brain, that I believe there is an element of safety that's needed,
massively,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So that's where the polyvagal stuff is kind of, they all say, the
mm,
nervous system is scanning for safety. Okay, great. But to me, that's a precondition for sexual arousal. We need to be quite in a safe environment.
yeah, and
Less
also,
safety is a
yeah,
fantasized thing. That's a different story.
and then there's how and I guess what I'm thinking about there as well is, how the brakes can be put on that sexual desire, sexual arousal by so many different systems as well. Not just shame, oh, should I want this? Could I want this? But I mean more, the more, for me and my neurodivergent system, I want to do this. This is great. I'm getting into it. But then, maybe the room's really messy and I just can't focus,
Yeah.
or maybe there's like these, or there's something sensory going on, a really loud noise outside or something that just means that my whole system's just like shuts down.
Yes.
um so I'm thinking about all of these interplays between things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe I love my partner very much, but maybe they just surprised me by wanting sex at this time and I wasn't expecting it, and so therefore my whole system's just going, but wait, it's Tuesday.
Yes.
And it
Exactly.
doesn't mean that I don't love them and don't want to have sex with them, but also, it's just the interplay.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think we are opening up a new chapter here,
Tangent.
right? Yeah, beautiful, because you know there is so many.
Yeah.
Usually, sex is talked about, and going back to Ali, not in a celebratory way. It's more about problematic and
Yeah.
when it doesn't
Yeah.
work, and dysfunctions and that.
Mm.
Because most of it, a big chunk of it, is due to how a lot of other things happen around us and during and before and after.
Mm.
And it's about if there is a rupture with the relationship with this person, it might have an impact. And if there is a
Yeah.
loud noise, and if you're just unwell on a specific day, there might be an age element.
Mm.
There's so much.
Yeah.
And where's the discussion about it?
Right.
It's just
Yeah. And when I was first training as a counselor way back when, there was a book, and there was a book, I don't remember if I think it was my supervisor, on their shelves when I used to go for my first supervision, and it was just a book there called Perversion.
gosh.
And this is not about them. They were a lovely supervisor and everything, but this was and basically it was a psychoanalytic book, I think,
Mm.
and it was just the study of all non-normative kind of sexuality, sex and sexuality, with all of these kind of strokey beard kind of psychoanalysts thinking about it, and it was just everything was just like it was such a vivid illustration of how it's like the thing that Ali was saying before, and like the thing that we've said so many times around sex, sexuality, gender, and neurodiversity, that this typical, this normal, this normative place. If we only see the world from there, then everything is perversion.
Yes.
Everything is other. Everything is different. And this book, it's just about like, I mean, it was from the 70s, so I don't want to traumatize anyone by kind of remembering too much of it. But everything was in there. BDSM, um,
I think back
being
then homosexuality was
probably
diagnosed.
homosexuality, almost, well, definitely homosexuality, but also, like having multiple partners, everything. And it was all in there as this like study of abnormality.
Yeah,
And these are the building blocks
yeah.
of therapy. Yeah. So I don't know why I started that. I'm not sure where
Well,
I.
because I said, where is the discourse around it?
Oh,
And
the discourse. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's how it used to be. So imagine this podcast wouldn't have existed back then. We would have been
Right.
diagnosed and put under some
Right.
strong medication. All
Everything
right.
we're talking about is disordered
Yeah,
through that lens. Yeah.
yeah. True,
Yeah.
true. So maybe even because I go back to that question, like is the self queer or not? And maybe the answer is who cares, right? Because
Welcome to my world.
not because
No, I'm joking.
because why are we asking, like, why does this question
Right.
asked, right? It's probably because it's at the back of a pathologizing way of looking at
Yes.
it. Do we ask
Exactly.
whether the self is heterosexual? There is no need, right? No one even
Mm.
probably thinks that way. So sometimes, even in fact that there is a question around it, it might come from an idea, oh, well, that's something strange. It shouldn't be the self, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a legacy burden that we are carrying even now as we're discussing this question. Why are we discussing it in the first
Mm.
place? Is it because Richard Schwartz didn't put these things in the P's and C's of self? Like, are we using this kind of paradigm?
Yeah.
Or are we doing it only for minorities? Are we doing this only
Yeah.
for to justify the existence of minorities, which then we do this only because they have been
Yeah.
stigmatized?
And it's tricky, isn't it? Because there's some really important things in exploring this and asking this question, and for people, because for people to actually say, well, maybe the self is queer, because it's like but only because of what you're defining it against, only because of heteronormativity, neuronormativity, whatever else, because it's the implicit, unspoken biases held within people that might think, well, no, that's not, self can't be this, self can't be
Yeah.
queer, self can't be neurodivergent.
Mm.
But then we have to, but then to say that self is only being defined in opposition, whereas if none of that mattered,
Mm.
if we weren't burdened by a society, by all this normativity, then would the question even exist? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think there is a lot about where is this question coming from when we ask it?
Mm.
Because probably the answer is the system identifies as queer.
Mm.
Then it's up to the system to look inside and decide what what parts are there, what self energy is available around it, what burdens are kind of in
Mm.
existence about that topic,
Mm.
and really leave it to the person, to explore. As
Mm.
long as we don't look at it through a normative or pathologizing way, and we don't maybe make it's more valuable if it's a self thing and it's less
Yeah.
valuable if it's a part thing, because ultimately parts have
Right.
got self as well, and that
Yeah.
distinction really stops being meaningful at some point when we embrace all parts and we want to unburden all of them and create
Mm.
an inclusive inner system and then
Yeah.
world and outer system. So that's where I'm going with it, Jude.
Yeah. So have we answered? How are we doing with our question?
I just
Is the
answered it,
self
Jude.
queer?
Don't ask me to repeat it because I cannot repeat the same words. But the answer is
What?
that the question should be reframed.
Yeah. I feel like I just want to say, we're discussing this in the absolute spirit of queering and curiosity. And you know, if it's, how do I say this? How do I want to say this? If for your system or your client system that there is an aspect of queerness or neurodiversity or whatever else that is really important and feels integral and true for you, great.
Mhm.
If that's, if that's not coming from parts and that is, an aspect of the system, well, no, wait, I'm tripping myself up now. If that's an aspect of the system, great. And if that feels really self-led, then brilliant. And if you're working with clients for whom this is less or more important in their system, then that's also okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to a both end scenario.
Of course.
What it, it's important to understand where things are coming from to have clarity, sure. But does it make any difference if a system has a self that doesn't really identify as queer, but parts do, like mine, or
Mm,
someone? Ultimately, what would the difference be operationally? I don't know. We will
mm,
still search for self energy. We will still contact parts involved in it because everything involves an element of both self and parts. And we'll still be curious about what's getting in the way of a
mm.
healthy, harmonious, balanced way of living with that particular identity.
And I guess it comes back to, what's your experience of self? Your experience of self might be a very bodily based experience, or it might be a more kind of spiritual type experience. And so there, um, you know, different aspects might be more or less present or evident for you, or more or less important, and that's okay too.
Yes. This is really about honoring. I think the answer
Yeah,
that I think we're getting there, and we need to kind of start getting to
yeah,
closing the episode, is about honoring how the topic is presented, how
yeah,
important, relevant it is to a system, and see who and how, who's holding this identity and how it's held, rather than
yeah,
wanting to know in advance. Just
yeah,
be open to hear, how is this being held in the system? What burdens are in existence? What, you know,
yeah.
within this
And I
thing? Yes.
fingers up. What I think is really important, and another reason why we do need to ask this question, well, the main reason we do need to ask this question is because we do live in a heteronormative, neuronormative world, patriarchal, all the things. So therefore, we do need to queer that.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just that being aware of or careful of, parts in your system or parts in anyone's system that might want to say, oh, self isn't that, as a
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
maybe a wish to, maybe parts that don't want that identity to really be there.
Well,
Or maybe as a therapist, the idea that, when we put something into a part, then sometimes it can be because we really, can we really accept this?
yeah, exactly.
Or is there a part of us that's still got that book on the shelf, the perversion book
Yeah.
or whatever else, that's saying this is something that needs to be cured?
And also there is I think we're querying the either or, because we're used to think of, is this self or is this part,
Yeah,
as if, is it one or the other? And actually, we don't know. It could be both, it could be one, it could be all.
yeah,
And maybe this question of wanting to know either or is coming from that perversion book, because we prefer it if something is a part rather than is in the self, for whatever
yeah,
agenda we have got,
yes, yeah,
whatever parts of us cannot accept or grapple or somehow have adverse reactions to certain diversities, wherever they're held, whether it's held in
yeah,
my finger, in myself, or in my parts. Or what business is that? Like, there is a
yeah,
bias in a part.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So
Right.
we've answered the question definitively and finally,
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
and that's us coming up to the end of our time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And even if we have given this amazing answer, I still want to have an episode on self is self neurodivergent,
yeah,
to see where
yeah,
we get there. Maybe,
yeah.
maybe we'll win
Another easy question to answer.
we'll win a Nobel Prize for
Yeah,
queering
of course.
the world.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Alessio. Where can people find out more about you and anything you've got coming that you would like to share with the audience?
So thank you, Jude. So they can find the majority of me on my website, therapywithalessio.com. I have an Italian website that I don't think people can really access because it's in Italian. But one of the projects I'm working on is to inform and create the same information that I have through my English blog in Italian. So that's one of
Mm,
the many projects that I'm doing. But mainly, I'm doing this podcast with you, and there are other projects that maybe I'll mention in other podcasts. One of them is on an exploration on gender, actually, that's coming up
mm,
in June with Anna Thomas, and they have accepted an invitation, so they'll probably be with us on one of the episodes.
mm.
That's me. What about you?
That's right. And we'll try and get that episode out in advance of
Yes, that would
your
be
workshop
that
as
would be
well.
good. No doubt.
Yeah, so people can find out more about me at my website, which is anchoredinself.co.uk. Yep, that's where you can get in touch with me. Nothing huge on my horizons at the moment.
Mhm.
to promote. But yeah, I love these conversations. And if anyone is feeling mentally or, stimulated by these conversations, then get in touch with us. We love these
Absolutely.
conversations. Whether you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we've got quite a few things lined up now, but we can always schedule stuff in for later in the year. Or if there's anything that we've said that's really, resonated with you, or
What that doesn't.
really doesn't, let us know. We are two people, two humans, having a conversation around topics that we're really passionate about. We are not the only voices in this sphere. I mean, I'm comfortable with not being right about anything, really, just
Yeah.
being curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Any feedback, positive or negative, is welcomed. And
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Or any topics,
oh yeah, suggestions for topics, of
yeah,
course.
things that you would like us to talk about or talk more about. Let us know that too. And
Yeah.
that's about it, I think. Is there anything we've forgotten to say?
Well, we will never know.
Probably. Thanks,
Okay.
Alessio.
Thank you all for listening. Bye bye.
Bye.